American tribes are basically their own nations. In fact, they've been that way since well before the start of American history. It's called tribal sovereignty, but protecting it hasn't been an easy task. Let us explain. There are currently 573 federally recognized native tribes in the U.S., and every one of them has the right to govern themselves and their lands. Before the Constitution existed, before the U.S. itself existed, American colonizers struck tons of treaties with the indigenous tribes and thereby recognized tribes as independent nations. And when the Constitution was enacted in 1788, it too recognized their sovereignty, not just from the federal government, but also states and foreign nations. But soon after, their sovereignty was put at risk. In the 1800s, a series of Supreme Court cases ruled that indigenous tribes were domestic dependent nations, meaning they had lost certain rights of a self-governing nation like raising an army because they were seen as inferior people in the eyes of the United States Supreme Court. But there were more challenges to come. First, the federal government tried relocating all tribal nations by exchanging their homelands with less valuable lands. Then, when the tribes failed to assimilate, the United States broke up reservations by a process called allotment. Allotment gave each tribal member a piece of land with the hopes that it would become economically productive. But instead, it resulted in the loss of millions of acres of tribal property. In the 1950s, Congress passed legislation that aimed to assimilate Native Americans into mainstream Western society. More than 100 tribes were terminated and had their recognition and sovereignty revoked. The result was a flurry of economic and social issues for the Native community, issues that persisted even after the policy ended. Since then, Native groups have regained some of their rights, and the government has taken a more supportive approach to tribal sovereignty. Today, tribal nations work to rehabilitate endangered species, restore their traditional languages, and address the epidemic of murdered and missing indigenous women in Indian country. But the debate still isn't over, because the right of Indian nations to self-govern is often being redefined and challenged, despite the fact that its history predates even the birth of our colonized nation.